IDMonSite edition. Today we are taking a closer look to the situation, to the human rights situation in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And for that, it's a great honor to welcome Mrs. Jasminka Džumhur. Jasminka Džumhur is a legal expert in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and she is Ombudsperson for human rights in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and apart from that, also former Vice Chairman of the UN on the rights of all migrant workers and members of their families. And it's a great honor, Jasminka, to welcome you here on IDMonSite. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for the invitation. It will be my pleasure to give some views related to situation in Bosnia and Herzegovina, particularly when we are speaking on human rights in this.
So let's start with news which could be read today. So today's news is that the Austrian Minister of Foreign Affairs, Alexander Schallenberg, offered humanitarian aid to the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Bosnia and Herzegovina, Mrs. Biser Turkovic. And against this background, I would like to ask you, Jasminka, in Bosnia and Herzegovina, the emergency state, and also in the context of the global COVID-19 pandemic.
Traditionally, Bosnia and Herzegovina and Austria have very good relations from historical perspective, but also recently and during and after war in Bosnia and Herzegovina. This offer, which came from Minister of Foreign Affairs of Austria, confirmed that approach which Austria has towards Bosnia and Herzegovina, but towards all region. For us, it is very important, particularly having in mind that we are on our way to become member of the European Union and that big family. But where are we today with coronavirus in Bosnia and Herzegovina? I must say that measures which have been imposed in Bosnia and Herzegovina in first part of March, and I will not use exactly dates for those measures, but definitely it was very, very early when we met with information that we have registered cases in Bosnia and Herzegovina. That pandemic in Bosnia and Herzegovina under of control, and today we have registered 1,537 cases. During of past 24 hours, it has been registered only 49 newly cases, but definitely don't have equal distribution of those newly cases. Mostly those cases are registered in Republika Srpska, and in Federation is only 15. During of this crisis, we lost 60 our citizens. Mostly of them are in age over of 65, and it is very important that Corona period also showed all negative situation related to our structure, and that we have met. I'm speaking really as citizen of Bosnia and Herzegovina. We have met many problems because of system established by Dayton Peace Agreement.
Could you explain in more detail? So you mean city level and canton level,
Exactly. For people who don't know too much on Bosnia and Herzegovina, I must say that the Dayton Peace Agreement, as name said, it is a peace agreement, but bad side of that is one of annexes of that peace agreement is the BH Constitution, which has not been citizens. What means that structure which was established by Dayton Peace Agreement in 1995 is still in place, and very negative reflected on human rights. It's not only my opinion, it is opinion expressed by many UN treaty bodies in the recommendations issued to BH, and many of those committees, particularly Human Rights Committee, Committee Against Torture, repeat cycles the same recommendation related to structure. And to be honest, state level has a very limited responsibility related to foreign policy, related to monetary issue, defense. Social and economical rights are on entity levels, and in federation as one of entities has a more complex structure because economic, social and rights, including health, including social system, is a joint responsibility of federation and 10 cantons. And now you can imagine that structure in a period of pandemic, how to create measures to have control under of pandemic, at the same time provide health system more oriented towards citizens and for borders. And we have really many exactly in that area, because security aspects, including control of border, is under of state level, Ministry of Security. At the same time, health issue and this emergency situation in health system is under of entities, and although Ministry of Civil Affairs on state level has not only has an obligation according to law on ministries to coordinate health issues, it has not been used that power. And on top of that, on state level, state government has not adopted a budget, and we are still on state level on temporary budgeting. There are very limited telephone sessions of Council of Ministries, executive branch on state level, and on the end there is lack of coordination among first of all on horizontal level among different ministries on state level, but also on vertical level between state level entities and cantons. And last, what happened last week, on the end of last week, Federation relaxed a little bit measures because we had police hour from 8 o'clock in the evening till 5 o'clock in the morning. Kids and elderlies in Federation during the past 37 days didn't have chance to go out of homes compared with which had a easier measure, particularly when we are speaking on children. On last Friday, Federation decided to remove police hour and also to allow kids and elderlies to go out in some hours each second day from today, and it immediately was reaction from Republika Srpska. Why there is no coordination to make measures at the same time? But on beginning, when Federation asked coordination of measures, there wasn't positive response from Republika Srpska, because what happened at the beginning, kids from Sarajevo, because Sarajevo is capital, in Republika Srpska there is East Sarajevo, border are in one street, and the parents so often took kids from Federation in car and allow them to go out. And definitely this pandemic showed how it's not well-functioning system in Bosnia and Herzegovina, particularly when we are speaking from perspective of human rights.
Mm-hmm. And your institution also published on April 16th the recommendations on communication policy. So when the decisions, political decisions are taken, to communicate them also properly to the public. And my question to you, do you see your recommendations taking also in account of such measures taken by the various governments on state, entity and canton level?
Always when we have two issues together, security, including human security, because if we are looking this health situation, it's more human security. And on the other side, human rights, people are so often giving a priority to security saying, but we need to protect our security and human rights. We don't care. Although security is one of human rights issues, it's not possible to look those two issues separated. And when we issued those recommendations, it was more general recommendation as guidelines of what our authorities in the process of creation measures must take in consideration. Because on beginning example, we had very serious issue related to protection of personal data, because some authorities on a low level of government structure issued names of persons who were put in some isolation. And it was clear sent message. It's not allowed because they didn't broke law. If they will violate this measure, some isolation, we can speak on violation of law, and other citizens must have information on that. And after that, we had this related to kids and elderly. Particularly, we put a focus on persons, particularly vulnerable groups, including persons with disabilities. We have so many people in different institutions, houses for elderly, houses for kids without parents, houses also for persons with mental and intellectual difficulties. And we tried to give them frame under of which they should create measures. But as I said, for authorities, always, particularly if decision makers are dominantly police-oriented or still we don't understand how it's important to make reconciliation between security and human rights, and the best results comes with that. And therefore, I must say, we have decision from Constitutional Court issued last week related to elderly and children and treatment of them. They didn't abolish this measure. Constitutional Court didn't abolish measure. Clearly sent message that when the organ adopted such a decision, had not taken in consideration all relevant aspects, particularly when we are speaking on proportionality between aim, which should be achieved by measures, and between tool which was used to achieve that goal.
Mm-hmm. So, if I understood you well, the measures which were taken were too enormous for this healthcare situation, and not and also taken from security institutions, and not the healthcare in first sight. And when talking about publishing personal data, which is a violation of individual rights, may I ask you what were the consequences then for reading about that, and were there concrete consequences also in the direction that there is the awareness that the privacy is and private rights are very important?
A reaction from Ombuds Institute, from myself as Ombudsperson, because I gave several interviews in media, and also intervention from civil society organizations in media, resulted with that in a very short period of time, during a day, all those data published was removed, and they return in behavior to fully respect our constitution and the legislation on protection of personal data. Definitely very deep analysis of that what happened during of this period can help not only on those institutions but all other subjects responsible for human rights in Bosnia and Herzegovina to be more focused on education, government officials, particularly police structures, on important to respect human rights and to ensure implementation of human rights principles in daily work. We have a situation that it is lack of knowledge, it is a lack of respect, and but it's not general. You have a division among officials. On one side, you have a really group of people, group of officials who don't care. In middle, you have those who don't know too much on that. And on the other side, you have a good group of people who know, who want to implement that, but at the same time, they don't participate directly in a decision-making process. They are more working level people, and they are so often calling me, asking, what do you think, what we should do, how to change that, can I ask you, is it good provision, and so on. That practical daily work is very important, because we are not only protecting organization, we are also organization which should prevent human rights violation.
When you also mentioned human rights violation, what is your impression about the current situation in Bosnia and Herzegovina? Because you mentioned healthcare and security and fear. And is fear also in a way a mobilizing moment of reducing human rights in Bosnia and Herzegovina, which is of course a global situation at the moment, because it appears that security is put above human rights, or the discourse.
Fear is some leading thing for not only for government officials, but for citizens, for all of us. And sometimes I think that decisions are adopted on way it is better to be more security oriented. Because what happened if I will not use that, if I don't use those tools? Instead, to give more a democratic approach, giving more possibility that citizens increase awareness on citizens on importance that they are engaged in that process. But it is normally when you have such situation. In the last 1 month, we have so often situation that people try to compare this with a war period. Doctors use that. What happened during a war? They were maybe more oriented towards people, towards needs. Now we have situation that some doctors and some officials are not ready to take responsibility because they're scared. They're scared, they have families, they have kids, although they are doctors. And we have in the media, we have debate among doctors, among different associations of doctors. And on top of that, it's a very serious issue for justification. If you don't give me full protection, if I don't have equipment, if I don't have protection tools, I'm not obliged to do things, because we don't know what will be results of that. It's not only that I will be maybe infected, it is also what I will produce in future by that infection towards other patients and so on. But on the other side, those doctors who spent a period working during a war, they are saying we didn't think on that way, because each day when we went on street or when we went on a war line, we didn't care on that what will happen to us and so on. And it's an example also very, very interesting question for future debate, different aspects, because it's during of my era, I was child when was variola vera. But it's first time that my society met since 1972 such situation as it is.
The revival of the so-called revival of the 1990s, as you mentioned, is there also a division then according to ethnic aspects, or is it just a common enemy, this coronavirus? And at the same time, when you also talked about doctors who are not workers in their personal security, how is this problem then solved? Because there is then a lack of expertise and doctors who are working and treating other people in the country.
As I said, structure established by Dayton Peace Agreement really has showed all bad elements, and it's not citizen-oriented system. We still have problem to find this way of patient because you know that we have 2 registered cases that persons passed away on their way from home to hospital. Second one, it was an epidemiologic doctor, and he wasn't treated very well in according of statement of his wife, because he had tried to get medical assistance from different institutions in Canton Sarajevo. He called all his colleagues, friends, asking help. He had fever. He from day to day he felt very bad. And on the end, his first test for corona was negative, and I think in second or third time when he was tested, it was positive. But when he came in hospital, there was too late, and what means that he spent 10 days asking assistance, and he didn't get. Second case is from Mostar, from hospital, when one patient who had coronavirus passed 3 departments. There was intention to hide that patient is corona positive. It was on beginning when we met first corona cases, and also when we are speaking on a number of medical staff infected in this process. It showed that we need to make a reform of health system. It's one that is also unclear. Primary, secondary, tertiary health system. How does functioning? Who is receiving? I think that our health system collapsed during this corona period time. Definitely. It was clear that we are not ready to provide health assistance period. This extraordinary situation showed that it must be a priority for reform, but you can't make reform without having a properly analysis of situation, to have data, to use standards, because we know what is health, what health organization standards related to number of doctors, based on number of citizens and so on. But in Bosnia and Herzegovina, it is too bureaucratic approach. There is that we don't follow those standards to increase our health system and to be more human rights oriented.
And then what would be your recommendation to change that? So from which level to start on? Because the entity level is strong and has much more budget, as you mentioned, in comparison to the state level. So where should the next steps be taken?
As each analyze, asking assessment of needs based on population. It's not only size of population, it is issue that we have increasing number of serious illnesses, including cancer, which you need to mobilize more resources. Definitely we need to have analyzing that. On other side, we need to have to put that situation needs in standards established by World Health Organization. First of all, there must be the policy level. There must be decision on a policy level that they want to do that. They want to meet with that and to make reform. Is it okay to have 13 ministries of health in one country, which have last census was 2013, to have 13 ministers, including the cabinets, including administrative staff and so on? on the other side, you don't have example in medical treatment, pills or equipment, and some basic things people must bring. If you are going to hospital, you need to buy those things and bring with you if you want to be ensured that you have everything during of your medical treatment.
Yes, and there is, sorry to say, there is then the joke to bring the doctor with himself or herself for the medical treatment. And this is also the point, brain drain in Bosnia and Herzegovina and in the southeastern Europe region as a whole. And is it now also much more visible that a lot of workforce is missing in that situation? And regarding migration out of Bosnia and Herzegovina to EU member states, what are your prospects and impressions how this global pandemic crisis now can also affect Bosnia and Herzegovina, or better to say, migrants who work abroad, and regarding also remittances, or possible their return, their remigration to Bosnia and Herzegovina again?
Human resources is most important thing when you are making planning. You can have the best equipment, you can have money, but if you don't have good staff, you are not able to provide a health system. We lost our population during of conflict and after conflict, because many our former citizens, to be honest, to say it, former citizens, because some countries, example Germany, asking our citizens to remove the citizenship from Bosnia and Herzegovina as condition to get citizenship of Germany. There are also a group of our citizens who are living in some way W life, one in new countries and the other one in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Lack of attention on this population from Bosnia and Herzegovina side, what was shown during of census in 2013, we are trying to remove those people from our population, showed that we don't pay interest. And on top of that, we lost one young generation during of a war. And now when you are going in institutions, not only health institutions, including my branch, including judiciary, we have empty space in generation from 40, 45 till 55. And this generation over of 55 is very close to go in retirement. And if they will not transfer knowledge and experience to others, for those young in age till 14, I'm very concerned what will happen in future in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Who will take a lead position? At the same time, we have one group of people who already filled conditions for retirement, but they are still in power, and because they have been in power last 20 years. We need to create strategic approach to strengthening of our human resources, particularly in health system, because during of past 5-10 years, many medical staff members went from medical institutions from Bosnia and Herzegovina to other countries. There is also thinking in Bosnia and Herzegovina that after this crisis, pandemic, they will lose the jobs in countries, in Western countries, and they will return to Bosnia and Herzegovina. But when we are speaking on medical experts and the medical staff, I'm not sure about that, because money which you invest to produce one doctor, it is long period of time, particularly when we are speaking on a specialization and so on, that any country will not allow, will not pretend to lose such stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. When you mention migration to Bosnia and Herzegovina, there are also the discussions that people who would like to return to Bosnia and Herzegovina face difficulties in doing so. Do you have also complaints as Ombudsperson for Bosnia and Herzegovina coming from the part of re-migrants just aiming to live in Bosnia and Herzegovina again?
complaints only related to this corona period on fact that some of our citizens which were put in a quarantine, and there are of procedure related to establishment of that quarantine and related to treatment of them because they have not been tested immediately. Particularly among them, there are particular vulnerable persons, including mothers with kids, some people who. And last Friday, Federation decided to go out from this system and to return on the system to issue resolution on border, and that each citizen which coming to Bosnia and Herzegovina must spend 14 days in some isolation at home. But definitely we don't know yet who are those people who decided to return in this pandemic time. Some of them definitely are migrant workers. Maybe among them are big number of maybe have worked temporarily or had some non-regulated status in the countries where they were. And we don't know, but so that there will be remittance will be also less because based on some economics assessments, Bosnia, the biggest income in Bosnia and Herzegovina is from remittance, relatives who are living abroad sending money to their relatives in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And
when we talk about the population of Bosnia and Herzegovina, what are the numbers of prospects which we could expect in coming years will live according to prospects in 2050 and the like in Bosnia and Herzegovina?
In 2013, according to census, we have 3.7 million of inhabitants. Some assessments before coronavirus said that there is no more than 2 people in Bosnia and Herzegovina. UNDP made assessment that in 2050, Bosnia and Herzegovina we lost 45 on population because of trends. Our natality is less than mortality, and on top of that we have this migration process that educated young people going abroad to asking jobs.
What came to the background in the global pandemic, corona pandemic and corona crisis is the situation, it appears like that, the situation of asylum-seeking persons in Bosnia and Herzegovina. So as we know, the camp in Vučjak was closed in last December 2019, and at the moment the camp in Velika Kladuša, which is run by IOM, is criticized due to violence against its residents. And furthermore, last week, the Security Minister of Bosnia and Herzegovina proclaimed, Mr. Radončić proclaimed that 10,000 people will be removed from Bosnia and Herzegovina and will be brought back to the countries of origin. And he talked about that asylum-seeking persons from Syria are accepted like that, as in that status, but all the other migrants, he also called illegal migrants, will be brought back. And if I may say, it appears a little bit silly after knowing about Croatian pushback actions and now such a proclamation. And my question to you, Jasminka, is that possible? Can people just be returned, that big amount of people, and not knowing maybe where they really come from? And also from the technical point, how can be that realized?
Definitely, Bosnia and Herzegovina meet with a problem of migration, which is not migration which selected Bosnia and Herzegovina as state of destination. Bosnia and Herzegovina has been recognized as a state of transit, but having in mind that behavior of police in Croatia, treatment of migrants and so on police in Croatia as a first European Union state. Big number of migrants have been stopped in Bosnia and Herzegovina. They were prevented to continue the journey because they don't have interest to stay in Bosnia and Herzegovina. On the other side, problem is in the system. We have a legislation which says that foreign who has been on territory of Bosnia and Herzegovina, if expresses interest to ask asylum, there is deadline for 8 days. In extraordinary situations, it is 14 days. Under of that, he received or she received that paper that he or she is potential asylum seeker, but there is obligation of that person to approach to Ministry of Security Department for Asylum to ask registration as asylum seeker. They don't do that. What means they are also in some limbo. On the other side, Department for Asylum of Ministry of Security has not taken serious action to do registration of those people. They are justifying that because of lack of resources. We have also problem of understanding terminology and substantive. Who are those people? There is some people more police-oriented that they are illegal migrants because they are mostly illegally entered to Bosnia and Herzegovina. UN recommended that those people should be treated as non-regulated migrants, because in that moment you don't know who are they. Maybe among them are really asylum seekers, those who should be protected in accordance of international law. Maybe among them are some migrant workers. We are calling them non-regular migrants, and any state, not only Bosnia and Herzegovina, has obligation to take action to implement law, to try to identify those people and to offer them protection during of that period of time. But on the other side, there is the right to state because of only security, but also as a subject of international to check identity of those people. Many of them rejected to identify themselves, and they don't have identification documents. They are also each 14 days changing, approaching again, asking new this document that they are declared as asylum seeker and so on. What means if you want to ensure implementation of law, you need to provide, first of all, conditions. On the end, if you have a person who does not like to identify self, it is really security issue, having in mind that we have mixed migrations. That what means mixed migrations? That you have potential asylum seekers, those who are asking protection, that you have migrant workers, but also among them you can have also people who met with some security issues as terrorists and so on. When we are coming on the last, if you maintain all procedure and finally you have decision that is illegal migrant, it is margin of appreciation each state to implement law respected. You are coming in situation to execute your resolution. But first precondition is that you need to ensure to have this procedure. You need to follow your law, you need your constitution and international standards. And when you have final binding resolution that the person is illegal migrant, you can execute that resolution. Now we have two aspects. One, that you can return that person to state from which person came. We have agreement on readmission in the region, but based on information which I received with authorities, particularly border service, there is a lack of respectation during the past 2 years, particularly that agreement when we are speaking on a short procedure on readmission, and neighbor countries trying to avoid responsibility that persons came from their territory and so on. What brings us to a point of view that this is a regional problem, and it's not only problem of Bosnia and Herzegovina, it is a problem of Serbia, Montenegro, all those countries on the main Balkans route. We need to do something jointly without violation of human rights, with full respect of those people, and with providing them with legal aid, with everything what is in accordance with international standards. And finally, when we are coming on to return those people to other countries, I know before 2 years when Frontex organized training, I was one of trainers related to organizing return flights to states of origin. We met with the fact that big countries and so on also have problem to organize that return flights to state of origins because lack of cooperation on other side from state of origin, and many of them are not ready to sign agreement on readmission. It's definitely issue that we need to implement the rule of law with full respect to human rights, but at the same time with protection of security. Security is not does not mean exclusion of human rights, but human rights does not mean exclusion of security. Those two aspects must go together.
And regarding the refugee camps, because in Greece it's a topic, the coronavirus, is it a discussion on that problem that is also spread through the camps, so the not consistent regulations maybe, and is it a problem, the coronavirus, the refugee camps, is it a topic and public topic in Bosnia and Herzegovina, or at the moment not, because it appears that due to our global corona crisis, all mentioned now have come to the background in a way.
Any human rights issue in Bosnia and Herzegovina very soon, ahead of time, becoming a political issue, including migration. Must know that one entity is not ready to have migrants on our territory. They are not ready to open any migrants on territory. Although all those migrants, when entered to Bosnia and Herzegovina from Serbia and Montenegro, because dominantly they are coming from that side, they must pass. Republika Srpska is one of entities of Bosnia and Herzegovina and how it's possible that they are passing all that and they're coming in federation. All migrant now on federation. Blažu in Sarajevo is recently opened. It is former army barracks. There is also in Hadžići, and before 2 weeks there was opened Lipak in Unasana canton, because now through this Lipak camp it is possibility to ensure better conditions for migrants. But definitely it's important to speak with migrants. What is their future in that circumstances? Will they continue to wait to be able to go to Western countries in these circumstances globally, or some of them already decided to return through IOM assistance and so on? Because we are now discussing economic and social measures which should be imposed in BH, and how many people already stayed without job in Bosnia and Herzegovina. There is assessments that currently the reduction of budgets on all levels is more than 30%. What you can see in this stage after 1 month and more. What will happen in future? How to support migrants if you have own population in social needs?
And is Bosnia and Herzegovina on the international level left here alone? Because this it's not all the developments are in that way are not new. They just appear to be triggered by the corona crisis at the moment and come to the surface much clearly.
My position, definitely, it is only my position to stand alone. Not only Bosnia and Herzegovina problem, it is, as I said, a regional problem, it's globally a problem, and we need to have global consensus how to deal with that. I would like to remind that how was problem to have a global compact on migration, to have a consensus of main countries, partly when we are speaking on states of destination. And from that perspective, I think this action should be more in relation with our neighbor countries, and to stop, first of all, to stop arriving of new migrants, and there must be sent clear message to those who pretend to start this journey, that is not easy journey, that many migrants lost their life on this, and particularly now situation, I think that we need to send those messages. I can understand that needs of people to move because of situation in our countries, but if they will suffer on that journey, it is better to prevent that suffering for some period of time.
Okay, many thanks for your explanation. I would like to go to the Bosnian state itself, as you mentioned, and also human rights and definition of civic rights, and this Sejdić and Finci case. If you could explain the level at the moment, what is the status? Because in principle, it's the question of civic right. Who has the right to be elected by elections, and is there the possibility to, and or how to Bosnia and Herzegovina put the civic right before the definition of ethnicity?
Human rights are individual, what means that they belong to each person. And now in Bosnia and Herzegovina, when we are reading our constitution in preamble, there is a sentence which saying that rights are guaranteed to constitute people, Bosniaks, Serbs, and Croats, and later was added others. And in Article 2 of Constitution saying that all international standards listed in Annex 1 will be implemented in Bosnia and Herzegovina if there is a lack, including European Convention on Human Rights. If there is a lack of legislation with international standards will be directly implemented. You can see that we have conflict in our constitution in preamble and Article 2, because human rights are individuals, and you are providing guarantee to constitutivity. If you are not on top of those three constitutivity, you will not be able to enjoy rights. Since 2010, we have Sejdić-Finci decision. After that decision, there has been adopted other decisions related to issue that some people, because of their ethnicity and residency in Bosnia and Herzegovina, are not able to be elected for some positions in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Definitely, without having reform of our constitution, without having provided equal treatment to all, regardless of their ethnic or national background, I think that we will not be able to enjoy European Union. And my concern is that partly when we are speaking on state level, we have situation that parliamentarians are deciding on all of us. But at the same time, in election process, we don't all of us don't deciding all of them. What means that, example, if I'm a parliamentarian from Federation, people from Republika Srpska does not participate in my election, and I don't care what is message. I don't have need to care on that population because they are not my voters. It is the same example if I'm from Republika Srpska. I don't care on people in Federation because they are not my voters. And we need to change that. Definitely, we need to change after 20 years, after such many warnings for human rights treaty bodies from EU PR process, and in having in mind those European Court decisions, it is time to change, but we need to have people who are ready to do those changes. Changes must be because we have in power almost 2 decades the same group of people. And it is my observation as citizen, as one of 3 Ombudspersons, and definitely if we want to keep our young generation here, if we want to keep them future, we need to do something for them.
So many thanks for the explanation. So we should be focused on younger generations to offer them possibilities, not only in Bosnia and Herzegovina, but all in the whole region. And as you mentioned, at the moment, and it is also obvious that all the measures are taken on separate in a separate way and not on regional level or more international cooperation. So what we can take from our conversation as lessons learned is that, as you said, Jasminka, security and human rights are on the same level. They do not compete against each other, so they have to be taken at the same time as important. What do you think, Jasminka, is what can we take out now from in this situation at the moment for further developments in Europe and of course abroad, but in Europe at the first sight regarding human rights? Will there be a more awareness that human rights and civic rights are important and that there is the individual responsibility to save them?
That what we have is not created by, as I said on the beginning of our interview, by BH citizens. It was imposed by Dayton Peace Agreement. And one lesson learned that peace agreements should not give a solution of states in the conflict. Maybe it can be created only temporary solution for some period of time, and I think that is the biggest mistake of Dayton Peace Agreement, why there wasn't provision on a termination of a period during of which constitution can be enforced. Engagement of international community in Bosnia and Herzegovina has been very serious, very intensive, during of different phases, including still that we have European representative and that we have a high representative, which in some way with own responsibilities can make so many changes in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Bosnia and Herzegovina is, when we are speaking on citizens, cannot make changes by themselves because they don't have resources. If you have a situation that last week, example, Monetary Fund decided to support the BH during of Corona with one credit, which all of us, all citizens, will return that to our budget. But at the same time, they made agreement with presidents of 3 political parties. They didn't do that to like of Bosnia and Herzegovina. They made it by 3 leaders of political parties. What sent message to citizens? Who is the most important in the state? And from that, I think that all of us must learn that processes must be in regular institutions, that any sovereignty have citizens, and they, through election process, transfer the that sovereignty to government authorities. And if we want to make changes, also we need make changes in election process. We need to have electronic voting process to remove all those related to voting lists. We know that we still have dead persons on those lists, and that manipulation during of election process, it's serious question which removed in some way citizenship, ownership over of that process from citizens.
So to say it in simple words, Dayton II agreement or a new constitution would be needed, if I may say so.
I think it is not important to call that Dayton II, but if it is only solution, why not? Any solution to have new. We need to have new constitution, modern constitution. It can be created based on analyze of maybe 5, 6, 7 other constitutions. We know what are elements of constitution, and definitely that constitution must get votes of people. It must be citizen constitution.
Okay, many thanks, Jasminka, for the deep insight into the current situation and also further prospects and what we might expect. Thank you very much, and to our listeners and viewers, many thanks for watching IDMonSite. We enjoy and appreciate to follow and to continue with further insights into the countries of our country.
Thank you.